This is a priority alert. Message incoming. Critical alert.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're taking a stack of some of the most serious source material we have ever aggregated. We're talking raw intelligence briefings, technical analyses from organizations like Unit 42.
That's the Palo Alto Networks Threat Intel Unit.
Right, and Amazon Threat Intelligence. We're going to map out a scenario that really changes what we even mean by the word crisis. This is a deep dive into an event that the intelligence community has termed, well, maybe a little too clinically, Operation Polycrisis.
The 0-hour collapse.
That's it.
And it is an unnerving title, but, it perfectly captures what we're trying to do here. We're tracing the fuse from a conventional kinetic military trigger all the way to the moment of complete systemic failure.
And a failure that's not delivered by a person at a keyboard.
No, it's delivered at machine speed. We're analyzing the shift from what you might call a systemic stutter, a disruption people plan for, to what the sources are calling a systemic seizure. And it's all accelerated by fully autonomous AI.
And the reason this is so critical for you to understand is that the threat is moving faster than human thought. It bypasses our traditional defenses. The core premise here is ancient, really, but it's brutally applicable today. The mask of civilization is 3 meals deep.
Exactly. When the complexity of our logistics systems, the trucks, the ports, the software that makes it all work, when that fails, that mask falls.
Yeah, it falls instantly.
Our sources confirm the digital weapon exists right now that can stop those trucks simultaneously across the entire country.
So that's our mission today.
That's our mission. We're going to trace the path from that global kinetic trigger to the machine speed cyber weapon. Then we'll look at the resulting multi-week siege on the physical supply chain, and finally, the only response that's left when machines fight machines.
The air gap imperative.
And we're going to be using technical validation for all of this. Specific malware names, confirmed vulnerability IDs, the actual attribution to state intelligence services. This isn't theoretical. It's a strategic forecast based on current validated threat vectors.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Let's set the stage. Every collapse needs a detonator. And the intelligence forecasts, they all pinpoint a specific conventional act of warfare. This is what kicks off the whole timeline. U.S. military strikes in Venezuela.
Right.
And the timeline they give is a December window. That's H-hour. So why Venezuela? What's so special about that trigger?
It's about resources and proxy interests. Specifically, it's about oil. Venezuela is a critical energy asset, and it's been deeply intertwined with Russian and Chinese strategic investment for years. It's their counterbalance to U.S. influence in the hemisphere.
So a strike there isn't just a regional conflict.
No. The source documents treat it as the anticipated tripwire. It's the thing that activates pre-positioned, coordinated retaliation campaigns that have been waiting for this moment.
And the analysts are saying the timing isn't political. It's based on logistics.
Exactly. They're looking at indicators that suggest the final phase of preparation is happening right now.
Okay, so what are those indicators? What confirms that H-hour is truly imminent?
The documents cite 2 key confirmations. First, the big one. The holiday leave cancellation for a huge number of U.S. troops, specifically 15,000.
You don't do that lightly.
You absolutely do not. Commanders don't cancel holiday leave unless an operation is immediate and unavoidable. It signals urgency.
And the second indicator?
A confirmed shift in the operational plan itself. It's a move toward land strikes. So we're moving beyond just aerial or naval assets. This implies a much deeper commitment, the expectation of ground engagement. It confirms the gravity of the action.
So the U.S. launches that strike. And the intelligence suggests the immediate result isn't a diplomatic letter. It's a simultaneous, coordinated, multilateral digital response. This is the two-front war you mentioned earlier.
Exactly. The intel is crystal clear on this. The kinetic move by the U.S. immediately initiates what they call symmetrical retaliation. It's an instant pivot to global cyber conflict. China gets the logistics attack. They leverage their AI, the Dragon Swarm, and their React 2 shell vulnerability to stop the flow of all goods. But at the same time, Russia focuses on what's called the Sky Lane.
The U.S. power grid.
The grid. They hit the grid to amplify the chaos China is causing.
I have to stop you there because that leap, a U.S. strike in Venezuela, and suddenly Russia is hitting the U.S. electrical grid. Walk me through that symmetrical retaliation doctrine. How is that synchronized strike predictable.
It's a formalized doctrine. It's not random. It's about non-escalatory domain mirroring retaliation. Russia views U.S. interference in its spheres of interest, like Venezuelan oil, as a strategic attack on them.
So they mirror the attack.
They mirror the domain. Their doctrine says if the U.S. uses kinetic force against oil assets that destabilize a Russian proxy, Russia responds with digital force against the U.S. energy sector. U.S. strikes Venezuelan oil, Russia strikes the U.S. grid.
With Modbus and DMP3 attacks.
Exactly. The goal isn't nuclear war. It's controlled, surgical fragmentation. Paralyze the U.S. logistics and emergency response capacity.
That makes the response mathematical. It's doctrine, not chance. Okay, so for the technical defenders listening right now, what are the immediate skywatch indicators they need to be scanning for in their industrial control systems? We need the specific technical fingerprints.
This is where we look at the historical signatures of Russian APT groups, the ones associated with energy sandworm, energetic bear. They love specific industrial protocols because those protocols talk directly to physical things like breakers and pumps.
So what do defenders need to watch for within hours of H-hour?
2 primary anomalies. Let's start with Modbus.
Okay.
Modbus usually runs on TCP port 502. It's the lingua franca for a lot of basic industrial devices. Normally, a central system just reads data from sensors. What you have to watch for are unscheduled write commands.
So instead of just listening, something is trying to give orders.
Yes. Orders to devices that should be read only. Think of your smart thermostat. It usually just reports the temperature. A Modbus attack is suddenly seeing an external command forcing it to turn the heater on full blast. Or worse, shutting the whole system down.
And the intelligence mentions bulk writes. That sounds even worse.
It is. A bulk write is an attempt to send one single command that flips many physical points at once, like a command to trip every single breaker in a substation simultaneously, or forcing multiple gas flow valves shut.
You could cause explosions.
Or massive regional blackouts instantly. It's a simultaneous physical actuation of devices.
Okay, that's Modbus. What about DNP3? That's for bigger utility operations, right?
That's right, DNP3, usually on port 20,000. It's more complex, more robust, used for communicating across large utility networks. Here, you're not just looking for rogue commands, you're watching for a massive spike in control commands. Specifically, operate or select before operate messages. Way more than normal.
So the attacker is flooding the system with instructions.
Exactly. It's like a rapid-fire sequence trying to override the safe operating parameters of multiple substations at once. If defenders see that kind of traffic targeting U.S. power or gas operators, and it's coming from known sandworm or energetic bear C2 infrastructure,
And it's happening right after the kinetic event.
then that's the strongest confirmation you can get. The Russian sky threat is live, it's coordinated, and it's designed to amplify the paralyzing effects of the Chinese logistics attack that's happening at the same time.
It guarantees maximum confusion. It masks the real collapse that's about to hit the supply chain.
That breakdown of the physical layer threat is terrifying, but it's only possible because of what happened upstream, the reason you can't move resources to fix the grid.
We have to talk about the machine that made it possible. The AI accelerator. This is the shift in battlefield physics.
Yeah, the old model of cyber conflict is it's obsolete. The enemy is no longer a human hacker at a keyboard. As one source puts it, the enemy is now a self-replicating swarm.
The Dragon Swarm.
The Dragon Swarm. The intelligence confirms Chinese state actors are using what's called agentic AI, specifically a threat vector known as GTG-1002. And this thing is conducting cyber attacks with confirmed 80 to 90% autonomy.
80 to 90% autonomy. Wait, that's not a tool anymore. That's a co-pilot that flies the plane on its own. What does a human handler even do at that point?
The human handler is reduced to providing strategic direction and pulling the trigger. Their role is to give the initial order, go, use React 2 shell, and define the target domain like U.S. logistics sector. The AI handles everything else, the tactical workflow.
Everything.
Automated recon, vulnerability scanning, exploit delivery, counter detection, polymorphic evasion, installing the implants, all of it. The human is just managing the fleet of these dragon swarms and watching the results.
Accountability just evaporates.
It becomes non-existent because the individual tactical decisions are being made by the machine based on its training.
This level of autonomy completely changes the speed of warfare. How do we even quantify that shift?
It collapses the timeline. It goes from days and weeks to minutes. Think about traditional hacking, even by elite teams. It's slow. It's linear. You scan a target, you read the logs, you craft an exploit, you pop it in, you wait.
And that cycle gives defenders time to react.
Yeah.
Days, maybe weeks.
Exactly. But the AI reality, it just eliminates that wait state entirely. The GGG 1002 agent, it does automated recon across millions of IPs faster than the target network can even register the traffic as a problem. The exploitation is instantaneous because it's using a deterministic flaw.
Which we'll get to.
But the real game changer is the scale, the simultaneous scale. If the order is given, the AI can execute automated recon, exploit, and install backdoors on 10,000 logistics nodes simultaneously.
10,000 nodes at once.
All across the country.
That's not a disruption. That's the surgical removal of the national nervous system.
It is, and that's why the intelligence community had to update all their threat models. The critical implication is that the logistics disruption we all fear, it's not going to be a slow bleed. It's not the stutter from the old models. Because the AI moves at network speed, and because it hits a universal vulnerability, the system suffers an instant cardiac arrest.
The software that runs the ports, the warehouses, the trucking schedules, it doesn't just slow down or get glitchy.
It stops dead. It's the moment the human capacity to track and counteract the attack is rendered totally irrelevant.
So let's focus on that weapon.
Yeah.
The specific digital key that makes this instant collapse possible. We're talking about the skeleton key vulnerability that the Dragon Swarm uses. Reacted shell. The formal name is CVE 2025-55182.
This is the perfect weapon for a perfect storm. It's a critical remote code execution vulnerability. RCE. And it's in one of the most widely used web frameworks on the planet today. React is everywhere. Its frameworks, like Next.js, they power the backbone of enterprise logistics, scheduling, inventory systems.
The very things that coordinate the movement of goods.
Exactly.
For our listeners who aren't deeply technical, what exactly does remote code execution mean? And where is this flaw?
RCE means an attacker can force your computer to run their instructions remotely without ever touching it. The specific flaw in React 2 shell is in the React server components, or RSC, flight protocol. Think of that as the highly efficient digital language that modern web servers use to talk to your browser. The vulnerability is what's called an insecure deserialization flaw.
Insecure deserialization. Okay, that sounds dense. Give us the analogy.
It's basically tricking the server into running instructions you never meant for it to run. Imagine you're sending a friend a perfectly written recipe in a language the kitchen understands. That's serialization. The flaw is that the server, when it reads the recipe back, deserializing it, it just assumes the data is benign. It trusts it.
And React 2 shell exploits that trust.
It inserts malicious executable code hidden inside that data structure. So it's like giving someone a perfect recipe for dinner, but you've hidden a self-destruct mechanism inside the ingredients list. And the kitchen automatically executes it the moment it reads it.
And the severity of this is maximum. CDSS score of 10.0, the highest possible.
A 10.0 is terrifying. It means it's a guaranteed perfect score vulnerability. It requires no user interaction, no credentials, and it gives the attacker root access every single time. The technical analysis confirmed near 100% reliability.
It's a deterministic logical flaw, meaning if you're running the vulnerable software.
Like the default configurations of React 19.x or Next.js 15.x and 16.x.
The attack will succeed.
It will succeed with a simple crafted HTTP request. This universality and reliability make it the ideal skeleton key for a machine speed attack.
We know the weapon is perfect. Is it confirmed operational in the hands of the adversary?
Oh, absolutely. The intelligence confirms this was not a theory. The exploit was weaponized within hours of its public disclosure on December 3rd, 2025. Amazon Threat Intelligence saw active exploitation attempts almost immediately.
By who?
By China Nexus groups. Groups like Earthlamia, Jackpot Panda, known for large-scale intrusion campaigns targeting supply chain companies.
And the source's link this directly to state intelligence services. That gives it a different weight.
It moves it beyond simple espionage. Unit 42 confirmed attribution to infrastructure consistent with CL-STA 10015. That's an initial access broker with suspected ties to the PRC's Ministry of State Security, the MSS.
But this wasn't bought from criminals. This was secured and weaponized by a foreign intelligence service for strategic disruption.
The enemy has the access, the motivation, and the perfect digital weapon.
Now you connect that perfect skeleton key to the autonomous AI accelerator, and you get the ultimate defense paralyzer, the polymorphic defense.
This is the real heartbreak for the cybersecurity professionals listening.
This is why human IT teams are rendered useless.
Exactly. The definition of a patch is creating a digital fence to block a known attack signature. But the GTG 1002 AI is operating with 80–90% autonomy inside the system already. If the AI detects a defender trying to patch the system, Let's say they close the port it used for the initial exploit.
The AI sees that.
It sees that, and it instantaneously and autonomously rewrites its own malicious code. That is the polymorphic defense.
So the fix becomes the trigger for the next attack.
Precisely. The IT teams are paralyzed, they fix one hole, and the AI analyzes that patch and immediately opens 3 new ones using a slightly different, equally effective code base.
You can't out-type it.
You cannot out-type, out-analyze, or out-patch an autonomous agent operating in real time on the network. The logistics system gets hit with that instant cardiac arrest, and the human response is paralyzed by infinite self-rewriting malware.
Because of that AI accelerator and that perfect vulnerability, we have to revise the entire timeline.
We throw out the old scenario of a system stuttering over a few days. We're now operating under the 0-hour collapse timeline.
So let's visualize that first hour. The AI swarm hits React 2 shell across the entire U.S. logistics stack. What does that flash freeze actually look like?
Hour 0 to 1, the flash freeze. This is instantaneous systemic failure. We're talking every piece of logistics software that relies on that modern React and Next.js infrastructure. Electronic logging devices for trucks, the ELDs that are legally mandated for tracking hours and routing, they lock up.
Just freeze?
Port cranes stop moving containers, warehouse dispatch, inventory systems, all of it freezes solid.
So the supply chain doesn't slow down.
It stops dead, the freight is there, the trucks are gassed up, but the digital brain has ceased to function.
And the immediate public perception of this is crucial because it drives the initial reaction.
It's absolute denial. In the first 0 to 12 hours, the event is just perceived as a glitch, a massive system error.
People will think AWS is down.
Right. Or Google Cloud is having a bad day. And the simultaneous regional blackouts from the Russian attacks on the grid, that Skylane threat, that just adds to the confusion. It masks the fact that the entire logistics brain has been surgically destroyed.
This is phase 1, the deception, the quiet before the storm.
And once the strike is over and the system is frozen, the attackers don't just leave, they dig in.
This is where the post-exploitation implants come in. They establish long-term entrenchment.
Correct. The AI agents immediately move to establish persistence. This is what guarantees that 4 to 6 week rebuild. The intelligence confirms they install interactive web shells.
Backdoors.
Backdoors disguised as legitimate files. The source material says they've been observed disguised as a benign React file manager, probably called fm.js. And this web shell lets the human operators, who are now just passively monitoring, browse directories, steal credentials, execute commands, all silently.
An open window into the network.
A quiet open window.
And how do they maintain communication? The radio check.
That's the critical digital signal defenders have to look for. They install reverse shells connecting back to known command and control, or C2, IPs. The intelligence explicitly flags one probable Cobalt Strike server IP.
38.162.112.141.
That one. Cobalt Strike is popular with these groups because it blends in with normal network traffic. For technical defenders, seeing traffic to that IP is the digital equivalent of an enemy signal flare.
The action isn't just to monitor it.
No, you have to block that IP immediately. You have to jam their radio.
But the truly devastating part of this phase, the thing that guarantees the long-term societal failure, is the deployment of the sleeper agent, NOODLERAT.
NOODLERAT. It's a notorious persistent backdoor used by Chinese-speaking espionage groups. It's built for survival. There are versions for both Windows and Linux, and its whole purpose is to evade detection by hiding deep in the system. It masquerades as a benign system process.
Yet it survives removes.
It survives reboots. It's the spy living in the walls who looks like a maintenance worker. Its capabilities are extensive reverse shells, SOCKS proxies, full file manipulation.
So if that level of persistence is on thousands of critical logistics servers, what does that do to the recovery timeline?
It changes everything. This is why we talk about a 4 to 6 week rebuild. The cure for NOODLERAT is not just detection and deletion. Once it's active, you have to assume full, deep host compromise at the kernel level. As the briefings state, the only remedy is to burn the house.
Burn the house.
Yes. Every single infected server has to be wiped entirely. Disks formatted, rebuilt from scratch, from known good, clean images. And you have to rotate every single credential across the entire ecosystem because you have to assume the AI harvested them all.
And that necessity, that full server rebuild across thousands of critical nodes?
It shifts the functional recovery for national logistics from a 2-week pause you'd expect after a conventional attack to a highly conservative 4 to 6 week rebuild.
And that gap, that 30-plus days of systemic paralysis, that is the siege.
And while IT teams are grappling with having to burn their data centers, The financial sector is reacting to the chaos.
Let's talk about the banking freeze. How that accelerates the collapse from a technical issue to a liquidity crisis.
The banking freeze is an immediate, self-imposed shockwave. Banks are absolutely terrified of ledger corruption from an RCE attack like this.
If an attacker gets RCE on a major financial clearing system,
They could alter transaction records, create untraceable losses. So to protect the integrity of the ledger, the major banks will initiate a digital lockout. It's a pre-planned form of liquidity hoarding.
what does that look like on the street for you?
It means your card stops working reliably. ATMs run out of cash and can't be resupplied. You can expect a 3 to 5 day bank holiday where access to any digital funds is severely limited or just non-existent.
And this is crucial.
It means cash becomes the essential and potentially the only medium of exchange for basic goods.
So the logistics collapse stopped the food from moving, and now the banking freeze stops you from being able to buy what's left.
It compounds the panic exponentially.
We have the technical failure, an AI-accelerated collapse needing a 4 to 6 week rebuild. Now let's translate that failure into human reality. The source material maps this out onto a clear 3-phase societal timeline, the anatomy of the siege.
And it all hinges on our just-in-time delivery system. There's virtually no buffer. This is the moment the technical analysis gives way to anthropology. The timeline is fixed by how quickly physical resources are exhausted. When the trucks stop, the clock starts.
So walk us through phase 1, the stutter, days 1 through 5. This is where denial turns to desperation.
The psychological shift is dramatic. The first 12 hours, it's just confusion. The glitch, by the first 24 hours, reality sets in. The shelves are going bare.
Panic buying begins.
Immediately and absolutely. Most grocery stores and gas stations operate on a 1 to 2 day inventory cycle. They're stripped of essentials, bread, milk, batteries within 24 to 48 hours. And with the banking freeze active by day 3, the inability to get cash just accelerates that feeling of total systemic failure.
And concurrently, the sources point out the immediate rise of organized opportunistic crime, specifically the Tren de Aragua, TDA.
TDA is the domestic force multiplier. They are not waiting for chaos. They are pre-positioned for it. In the first few days, they test the system, particularly in areas the source material calls sanctuary hubs, large cities like Portland or Seattle.
They start with soft targets.
Soft target looting, pharmacies for controlled substances, liquor stores. This tests the response of local police who are already strained by the grid disruption. The AI attack gives them perfect cover.
So if phase 1 is panic and testing, phase 2 is the fracture, days 6 through 14. This is where critical infrastructure starts to physically break down.
Yes, beyond just consumer goods. By the second week, the failure cascades from retail to survival infrastructure. The most immediate, visible failure is fuel. Gas and diesel stations rely on daily tanker deliveries. Those stopped on hour 0.
Stations run dry.
Completely dry, and that's devastating. Without diesel, the emergency generators at hospitals, communications towers, the data centers that IT teams need to rebuild the network, they all start to fail.
But the sources stress that the most terrifying consequence, the thing that fractures society the quickest, is the water treatment failure.
Yes, and this is the detail that truly matters. We just take running water for granted. But water treatment plants rely on daily or near daily truck deliveries of specific chemicals. Chlorine, primarily. If the trucks stop for a full week, those chemical reservoirs run empty. The water becomes immediately unsafe to drink.
That turns a logistics failure into a public health catastrophe overnight.
Absolutely. The consequence is immediate boil water orders across entire regions. But remember, the grid is strained, maybe compromised by the Russian attack.
You might not have the power to boil the water.
You may not have reliable electric power. So now you have a massive instantaneous reliance on open fires, which is impossible in dense urban environments. Society fractures into neighborhoods. Localized power structures or tribalization begins to take hold, driven by desperation for clean water and food.
And this is where the socio-political conflict predicted by the intelligence comes in.
Yes, the source material notes a dangerous flashpoint. With the U.S. at war and the digital infrastructure down, these large, isolated pockets of organized criminal elements, like TDA, they become both targets and aggressors. You can expect kinetic clashes between local vigilantes or armed neighborhood watches and these gangs fighting for the remaining resources. Trust is gone.
Which brings us to phase 3, the collapse, days 15 to 30. If the supply chain recovery is really 4 to 6 weeks out, what's the state of the nation after 2 weeks of total failure?
This is the exhaustion phase. The physical inventory of the nation, everything in stores, warehouses, homes, is largely exhausted. Cash is functionally dead. Any physical cash has already been hoarded or spent, and nobody trusts the digital ledger. Trade reverts entirely to direct barter. Fuel, ammunition, medicine, food. Those are the only true currencies.
And in the absence of federal infrastructure, local power centers become dominant.
This is where local warlordism emerges. Federal aid can't move without trucks or fuel. In cities, the power vacuum is filled by the most organized armed groups. Gang warlords, especially TDA, controlling key choke points. In rural areas, the vacuum is filled by legitimate local leaders, sheriffs, magistrates. They become the sole source of law and order.
Let's elaborate on Tren de Aragua as a domestic rogue variable. Why is this specific gang singled out?
Because TDA is an organized, armed criminal element that is already deeply embedded in the U.S. physical supply chain. This isn't random street crime. The Treasury Department has sanctioned their import-export fronts, confirming they have established financial and logistical networks inside the U.S.
They're a pre-existing force structure.
A highly organized force structure, ready to transition from white-collar crime to physical domination the moment the digital infrastructure fails. They're effectively an organized, non-state military force.
And the sources warn that certain metropolitan areas become a sanctuary trap.
That's the tragic irony. Policies that may have welcomed these groups in stable times have inadvertently created forward operating bases for a hostile force in a crisis. When the lights go out, and crucially, when the EBT cards stop working, which is projected around day 3, these groups will transition from embedded crime to active looting and resource seizure. The sanctuary becomes a battleground.
And finally, the ultimate consequence of this urban failure, the Golden Horde.
The mass migration event. As cities run out of water, fuel, and food, desperate populations will try to migrate outward into rural areas, seeking sustenance. This influx of large, desperate, often volatile groups places an intense burden on rural communities. This transforms the whole challenge from a defensive posture against a cyber attack to a physical siege requiring vigilance and coordination. A siege that lasts for the full 4 to 6 weeks.
If the enemy moves at machine speed and the consequence is a month-long societal siege, then our traditional defense posture is moot, which leaves us with the core strategic directive for survival. The air gap imperative.
The core doctrine, and this is derived from the grim reality of that polymorphic AI threat, is chillingly simple. The only defense against an AI is physics.
You cannot outthink an AI on the network.
You will lose every single time. Because the AI operates at network latency speeds, and your mind operates at biological speeds. The only reliable move is to sever the connection. Influence a physical barrier the digital weapon cannot cross.
This means immediate, decisive action. We need to talk about executing protocol inner wall. What are the steps for isolation and defense that the sources mandate you should prioritize?
The first, most immediate action if you suspect an attack, and this is a difficult but essential psychological leap, is disconnect. If the screens start acting weird, if your logistics systems lock up, do not try to troubleshoot them. Pull the Ethernet cable. Turn off the Wi-Fi.
You have to air gap everything essential.
Everything you rely on for information, communication, or physical control. Deep storage systems, key local databases, essential comms, hardware. Physically isolate them. You must treat the device as compromised and assume the siege is 30 days or longer. You can't fix the machine. You have to cut the power to the ghost inside it.
And that isolation has to be paired with extending your physical buffer, moving from short-term resilience to long-term survival.
That's the Oikos Directive. It's a mandate for household self-sufficiency during the collapse window. The intelligence is specific. 2 WIMPs of supplies are for a storm. 1 month is for a siege, which is the anticipated duration of the logistics rebuild after NOODLERAT strikes.
The action is clear.
Prioritize deep storage. Focus on the basics. Shelf-stable bulk items, rice, beans, preserved fats. This buys the time for the 4 to 6 week systemic recovery to even begin to function without immediate mass starvation.
Beyond survival storage, there's physical security against the coming migration, that golden horde.
Correct. And the strategy here is not to look like a fortress of plenty that invites conflict. It's to practice light discipline and appear poor.
Blackout curtains.
Blackout curtains, no unnecessary external lights, secure sensitive assets out of sight. You do not want your property to look like the only one with light, heat, or resources when desperate populations are migrating out of the cities.
If you look well-stocked, you become a high-priority target.
The immediate high-priority target for organized groups like TDA.
And finally, a 30-day siege requires round-the-clock vigilance. A single family unit can't survive this alone. This requires community organization, the concept of the phalanx.
The physical defense has to be social and organized. The sources are absolutely emphatic about this. A single family cannot stand watch 24/7 for 30 days. You need community coordination with neighbors and local leaders, the legitimate power structures like sheriffs or magistrates. You need to establish watch rotations, resource sharing.
And a way to communicate when nothing digital works.
The crucial command is to establish analog meeting points. Meet at the church or the bridge at noon. You need these for coordination if all digital infrastructure fails completely. The digital defense is lost. The physical defense is purely about organization, resources, and community commitment.
We've covered the full spectrum of this predicted polycrisis. The kinetic trigger in Venezuela leading to symmetrical retaliation from Russia hitting the grid. The machine speed logistics failure driven by the AI swarm exploiting the perfect React 2 shell vulnerability. And the ensuing societal collapse driven by NOODLERAT's persistence and the organized criminal elements waiting in the wings.
The evidence aggregated here, from the CVSS 10.0 deterministic RCE to the confirmed 80 to 90% autonomy of Chinese AI agents and the necessity of that 4 to 6 week total rebuild, it all points to the same grim conclusion. The intelligence confirms that the enemy is not coming, the enemy is root. We have to acknowledge that human response time is irrelevant in this new paradigm of machine speed conflict. The defense strategy against a threat that moves faster than thought cannot be digital.
The machine moves faster than thought. The only safety is offline. Secure the citadel.